Ankur. Thank you so much for joining us at Resilience with Dhruti Shah. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, Dhruti. It's a good opportunity, and I'm thankful to you that I'm getting opportunity to connect with your audience and share whatever my experience in the entrepreneurship journey has been.
Yeah, and I think there is a lot that you have to share, but let's start at the start, as we say, right? So take us back to that moment when you realized that health will be your life's work. What really sparked that passion for you?
So, journey actually, I would say the trigger was my son's illness. So, he got a incurable skin allergic reaction. We
Mm-hmm.
went to different doctors and even explored the alternative medicine in this case, but we were
Right.
not getting any sustainable solution to it.
Mm.
And that's when we got in touch with one of the natural healers and lifestyle experts who
Mm-hmm.
guided us to make progressive changes. And best part was that they also explained us why he's experiencing those. So he was just
Mm.
a 7-year-old boy, and we were wondering that where to go and what to do. It's too younger age to take any strong medication to solve that.
Yeah.
And when we made those progressive changes within 6 months to 8 months, we saw a significant drop in the frequency of those episodes and intensity as well. And after a few months post that, those last set of episodes, it kept on reducing. And within a year, he was completely cured. There was no episode which were happening. So that triggered a question in me that, how come when we have so well developed healthcare system and they didn't have a solution, and even on the alternate healthcare, and this thing got resolved through simple but very effective lifestyle changes, which were in his diet, in his sleep, in the kind of movements and other things which they suggested, which a child could do, obviously.
Yeah.
And that then led my journey to explore that in depth. I started reading. I started doing workshops, attending workshops, and also studying about nutrition, exercise,
Mm-hmm.
and how the physiology, so that was also important aspect of my learning. And then I realized that this is a wonderful science and it should reach out. If I have experienced that benefit, there's
Yeah.
so many people who are suffering. That knowledge, that science needs to reach to them. So that is
Okay.
when I realized that that connection was there, because I was already very passionate about yoga, exercise, and other health sciences. But somehow in the corporate life, things got a little lost.
Yeah.
And then those connections which were there in my childhood, it's just you can say the seeds were there, but then this trigger got opportunity for me to then express myself, and that's when I realized that is my mission. And then gradually and progressively, I kept learning, and then started a health community in Delhi.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I started my first venture in 2019, the wellcure.com.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so that has been my journey, which started with a health uh, issue in my own family, and
Mm.
reached into a manifested into a, I would say, a health mission for me.
Yeah, I think it was always like you rightly said, the seeds were already sowed in that sense. And you just took this as a trigger for you to be able to do something larger and make it more mainstream. Because you did mention you did a lot of research, you read up a lot of things, you visited a lot of different doctors, and finally something resonated with you, a form of treatment. And I think you wanted to bring that to the citizens at large in that sense, right? So you did co-found Wellcure, from what I understood, right? And I think the focus was on preventive healthcare and group coaching in that sense. So when you exited the company after a few years, right? How did you view it? Like, because this was something you were so passionate about, and typically in our society in general, when we think about exiting something or quitting something, we view it as a failure. How did you view it, Ankur? Was it a failure? Was it a success? What was going on?
So, how society views a failure, especially in India,
Mm,
is slightly different from way I think. And then, yes, a lot of conditionings and people around you make you feel that it sounds like a failure. But I think it was not a failure on two fronts, because when I started Wellcure, my aim was to create an impact, and
mhm,
on that respect, we were able to make impact with thousands of people, whether they got influenced through in terms of through our programs and workshops or coaching, and a lot of them we have thousands of health journeys, what we used to call them, and it
mm,
still there, that how they were able to transform their lives or their family in terms of health, which obviously like me, we I could sense and see that those journeys were there. So in
mhm,
that sense, that impact was there, and I'm very proud of it that through our work we were able to reach to so many people and
mhm,
influence their life positively. And second was, yes, there were certain learnings on the
mm,
way, that how you could do better. And for me, I feel it's not about falling in any respect, but it's about getting up again and again. So that for me represents a real success. And I do felt that in this journey, that impact was made, and that was my first entrepreneurship experience. So that
mm,
learning is invaluable. That will stay with me all my life. So I see it as an opportunity for me to make me learn, which I wouldn't have learned in any business school or in any book or any course. What that 4 years taught me
of
and
course.
inspired me to actually achieve my mission.
Yeah, and that capability to get up again and again is what we call resilience, right?
Yeah.
And you've also mentioned in one of our conversations previously that you view startup as a medium to live your passion, right? So, was there a particular lesson in resilience, if I may say so, that helped you with Pivot Health, your latest current startup? Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of, it's a passion for me, the healthcare part. And what I realized as I was just sharing that, a lot of research went in to
Mm-hmm.
before starting my own venture,
Yep.
the first one. And when I was starting again, that's the time. And then I spent another 1.5 years just researching more in depth of the problem I need to solve. So
Mm-hmm.
that is where I started working to reach out to doctors to, and then in my research, I found a big gap in the market, which was in terms of heart health, that there is a big gap which needs to be filled.
Right.
And that's where I then found that what is missing, because it's the biggest problem to solve, and why no one is solving that. So that was a time when I also met and reconnected, I would say, to my college alumni Anshu, who was starting a venture studio. And that because my first experience was that in preventive care, especially in the D2C space, it's a
Mm-hmm.
long term game,
Yeah.
and it is impact driven. But when it comes to the investor ecosystem, it's not a typical journey which they expect in terms of the scalability or the speed of scale, I would put it that way,
Right.
and especially in a service oriented business. So that's the time when I was looking for more than the technical skills, because that I had acquired. I had entrepreneurship skill, but I felt there was something else which I needed, obviously beyond the capital support.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I got introduced to a venture studio model, where each and every venture is nurtured for that growth, uh, to be able to achieve their goals in a cash flow or a sustainable manner. That's
Right.
what resonated with me. And that's
Mm.
when my second journey started. So I think, that is where I feel that when an entrepreneur is working with, the passion is there, but in the journey there are so many challenges which comes. It could be building the team, it could be legal, it could be building the finance system, and getting that doing everything by yourself becomes a challenge. And that's where I felt that to continue or not lose the sight of the passion and the mission which you are in,
Yeah.
that's where these connections and that support system is needed. And that's what led me to, or gave me the courage to take those steps.
Absolutely. And you mentioned you're in the D2C space, right? Which means that you're working directly with your end consumer in that sense,
Yes, yes.
which brings about a whole other set of challenges, right? What are some of the unique ones that you faced in this?
Yeah, so preventive care market, when it comes to India, especially I'll talk in context of India because
Hmm.
our ecosystem and conditions are slightly different from the
Yeah.
developed world. The challenge is that in India, still the preventive care comes as a second priority. It's not in
Hmm.
the top priority, uh, and that has a cultural, or I would say demographic reasons to it. Because over last 30 to 40 years, India's health expectancy has increased. So it was in 60s and 70s, it used to be around, 60, 62 was the life expectancy. With obviously modern healthcare, with development, now it is in, 68, 70. That is where we have reached. So what has
Yeah.
happened is that a generation before, or our parents' generation, I would put it that way, the they haven't seen the most of, like, my grandparents or most of the generation before. They passed away in their 60s or 70s. That was the trend which was there.
Yeah.
But now the segment which we are in, we'll be seeing most of the people living up to 90s, late 80s.
Yeah.
That's where it's a big difference, because now whatever your preventive, whatever your body, your physiology is, that's last 10 years or 15 years is when you see the maximum impact. So since we
Yeah.
didn't see it, we said, okay, in 60s, it's okay, person does die from some reason, or say any
Mm.
disease. But now that life expectancy has increased due to modern medical care, I would say. Uh, and you're not seeing that what you didn't see in terms of the health span or the quality of life, which is this generation is seeing now. So that
Mm.
is where we see, okay, what is the value of preventive care, because bodies were able to operate quite reasonably well in 60s and 70s, but
Yeah.
now it is a challenge. So that is where that preventive healthcare is still a very important thing for our population, our economy. But in terms of realization, I think it will start to peak in coming years. Post COVID, there have been significant increase in the interest. That's what I saw in Velcure.
Hmm.
And now I see that after that, there was a slight downward trend, but now things are picking up, as we are now seeing a lot of corporate executives, people in their 40s and 50s, they are facing some chronic issues, chronic health issues, sudden heart attacks. A lot of things have started to come. Now that realization is coming. Oh, okay. So now it is not about that 70s, 80s, quality of life. Now it is becoming a question that how we can survive or not face a risk which completely disrupts our lives, our career, our work, our mission. So
Yeah.
that is where I had a one major, I would say, learning and realization as a trend. I would say I see it. Second is in the ecosystem, we have that habit of or ease of access to medicine. You can go down to any chemist and buy any medicine which are ideally should be prescribed. So
Hmm.
that becomes a first solution. Okay, I have a fever, I can just go and buy an antibiotic, I'll be okay. I'm experiencing pain, I can go and buy a painkiller. So that ease of access means that that is the first point, an easy point for people to do it, because a preventive care or change in lifestyle requires some amount of effort,
Yeah.
and that inertia to change is there. So these are the few trends which I've seen in preventive healthcare. But as I said, that change, that inflection point is coming, and people are realizing that it is important not only in terms of how their quality of life will be, but also to de-risk and make their lives better. And I think the third phase will also come, where people start to realize preventive health is not just prevention from disease, but it becomes performance oriented. How an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur, how a founder, how a leader or a CXO, when they are doing, they should think that how their physiology can help them improve or their performance. Just like we have athletes, they train themselves
Yeah.
so that they're able to perform at their peak on the field, both mentally and physically. And
Yeah.
that's where I think now we should start seeing healthcare intervention, lifestyle intervention, not only to prevent a disease, but perform better on the task, on the career mission, whatever you have.
Yeah, and I think you beautifully brought that into the mission as well, right? For
Yes.
Pivot Health. That's precisely what you intend to do. And I think you're one of the few companies that have taken the lead in this stream, and creating awareness is the biggest thing right now, I think, because it's a mindset shift that you're looking at. Some of it may come naturally to people, some of it through education, through campaigns and all of that. So I'm sure the team is busy doing that right now in terms of creating awareness. So good luck to you on that. Now,
Thank
based
you.
on the journey that you've had, and I know it's not been decades of entrepreneurial journey, but two ventures in that sense, Velcure and Pivot Health. Do you already have a blueprint, or maybe you see a pattern emerge to create a resilient startup?
Yeah, so in terms of blueprint, based on my learning, because between Velcure and Pivot, I
Mhm.
was back working in corporate sector, in
Right.
the start within the startup ecosystem only. So that's when I got opportunity to see different startups at
Hmm.
different stages. So the crux of the learning, and obviously I'm learning every day, is first is what I realize is a very, very strong foundation. So you should have clarity on your mission. So once
Mm.
that is what I would say, many entrepreneurs or founders, and even myself in my first journey, that 100% clarity in terms of the business goal and aligned with your mission should be there. So that is the
Mm.
first, because then that's the anchor on which every decision, every product or service is based, and all
Right.
the customer experience as well.
Yeah.
Second is, I would say now the clarity in terms of the financial goals, or in terms of from day one, my clarity was there on Pivot Health that it has to be a cash flow positive business. Yes, there
Mm.
will be a time which I have to invest and make it grow. But my target is within 18 to 24 months, we are able to achieve that milestone. So that
Mm.
is where I feel that's the second aspect. Because for me, that's how I understand business, that it does exist uh, to be profitable and sustainable. Because
Yeah.
if we are not sustainable even with scale, then somewhere that mission aspect is lost. So
Yeah.
that's the second aspect. Third is the human element. So
Mhm.
in that, there are two parts. One is your how do you build your team.
Mhm.
So that is where I feel, especially the first layer or the second layer, how it is the strongly it is built. The strong, it comes back to the first point being the foundation. So,
Yeah.
and the second part of the human element is customer experience.
Mhm.
How you are obviously try your best to make a fantastic product or a service, but we do forget that customer experience aspect, which is much, uh, it starts actually before they buy your product. then they experience the service when you're delivering or the product you're delivering, to the post service experience. So
Mm,
that entire spectrum needs to be taken care of. That it's not a one-off relationship which ends with a service or
mm,
with a product. So third is that human element in terms of the customer experience. So I think if the mission clarity, the financial clarity is there, and this human element is sorted, I think that is what I feel it is a blueprint, whether it is a B2B business or D2C business.
mm.
Everything for me, I do evaluate, and I will be evaluating in ongoing basis that how well I am doing in all these three buckets or these three aspects.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And what you mentioned are also the basis for creating resilience, right? Because I think having a very clear purpose in what you're doing, I think financial stability really supports. Um, it's less of a headache when you don't have to worry about your finances, right? You can focus your energy on innovation, creativity, which can be hampered if you're not comfortable financially. So that, and of course, having a team that supports you and the customer element that you mentioned, the customer centricity, keeping the customer in mind, it would play a huge role in the success of the company. So, depending on what you've just said and pulling out little strands and threads from what we've discussed so far, how are you building Pivot differently from what you've done before, from what you've experienced, from what you see out there?
So, you know, taking those three foundational elements, how I'm building Pivot is what I call as a framework DOHP. So D
Mm-hmm,
stands for data and evidence based. O stands for outcome oriented. H stands for the human element, and the fourth is the P, which is a personalization.
mm-hmm,
So, what I mean by data and the evidence based is that we start every customer journey by collecting their data, their blood biomarkers, their physiology, their habits. So, that becomes the foundation because we want everything to be uh, understood at the foundational level. So, that is
mm-hmm.
what the data or the first step is there. Then
Yeah.
comes outcome. So, any healthcare aspect, it should be outcome oriented, which needs to be more holistic. So, that's
Mm,
when we do the first step, the data part. We have a 360-degree view of our client, not only in
mm,
terms of their physiology, but at what kind of aspect they are facing in their life. Are they undergoing a lot of stress, and how their lifestyle is? So, that view is there. So the outcome is based more holistically, that out of that risk profile or those three, four areas which needed a work upon, these on those basis, the goals are set and then outcomes are set, which are both
mm,
objective. Maybe it is weight, maybe their insulin levels or any blood biomarkers which are little off. And second is subjective. How do they feel? Do they feel strong? Do they feel in control of the situation? How do they feel mentally? So that
mm.
becomes the outcome orientation.
Right.
Then comes the third element, which is the human element.
Mhm,
Yes, we are living in an age of technology where on a click of mouse you can just type in I'm facing this. Chat
mm.
GPT can give you outcomes and results. This is a diet plan, this is an exercise plan. But
Yeah.
humans are quite complex. Their behavioral aspect is that's or everything comes down to execution, and the
Mhm,
context of every individual is different. So that's where we for all our programs we have human element. That means an exercise coach would be there, a nutrition coach would be there, a yoga coach would be there, and overall health coach would be there, who's like a project manager for each and every client. So,
mhm,
so all the three aspect on week basis, client is interacting with a live human who can listen to them, who can understand their context, their challenges, and keep refining whatever their actionables are. Then last comes the personalization aspect, which comes obviously from the human element because every individual context is different. Uh, Gender, age, their social demographic. They live in a city. Maybe there is someone like few of my our clients. They have a 2 to 3 hour daily travel schedule now
Wow.
versus someone who's working from home. The context is completely different. So you can't
Mm.
have a cookie cutter plan for them. Someone may have preference for running, someone may have preference for swimming. So
Yeah.
all those things needs to be very personalized, both in terms of context, preferences, and the first step. Their physiology will be very different. Each and individual person is different. So that's where I am building pivot, that all the four elements they come into picture to be able to give the best possible customer experience and outcome for the clients when they're there with us. So that's where I we are building pivot differently. And obviously on the business side, the goal remains that it has to be cash flow positive and
Yeah.
impact oriented.
I love how practically you're building it. There is a very clear vision. There is a passion, of course, for what you're doing. And then with data, outcome, human element, and personalization, you just it seems to be foolproof, right? In that sense, in what you've created. And I hope you have, continued success with what you're building and what you're doing. Uh, so, Ankur, one is where we create resilience in the startup by, following certain steps, by having your blueprint, right? How did you, as an entrepreneur, as an individual, build your own resilience? Do you have a blueprint for that?
Yes, Dhruti, I call that as a resilience operating system
Hmm.
because, as an individual, you have to build a very strong ecosystem to be resilient.
Yeah.
Individual, you have, I would say, a limited capacity, or I would say a limited fuel, which is there. But
Hmm.
in you need to have at least three set of pillars, I would say. First
Hmm.
and foremost is your family, because they become the very important system. You may have odd hours, you will have a lot of stress, and you may not be able to give family that much time. So having that anchor for me was very, very supportive. My wife was very supportive all throughout the journey, even when taking the decision to take the jump, and
Yeah.
in the difficult times
Mm.
which I faced at different points in my entrepreneurial journey. And then comes the second aspect, which is your I would say professional group. So I had a lot of mentors who were either ex entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, may not necessarily from healthcare or any other domain. So that
Hmm.
is where I did had uh, leadership coaches or mentors, professional, helping me throughout the journey, guiding me when I was stuck, or I had two ways, which way both looked right or wrong. They helped me guide it with their own experience and perspective, and then left that decision to to me. And third comes the community. So community, where I mean is two parts. The entrepreneurial community, because we have to normalize our success and ups and downs, and
Yeah.
every entrepreneur goes through it. But when you are isolated yourself, you'll feel it's happening only to you. But when you
That's right.
interact with 10 other entrepreneurs, you learn it. And then the fourth part, or the sub part of the community, I would say third element in within community, would be the industry. So within the healthcare industry, you interact with other preventive healthcare. It could be individuals who are trainers or nutritionists, or running a diagnostic business. So who are operating within that ecosystem, because then you can learn how the customer trends are changing, what are the
Yeah.
new aspects. We spoke about technology, how technology is influencing and changing. So that's where I feel that a resilient operating system needs to build, which should have the family, the mentor, or the ecosystem, and the third is your community, which includes the entrepreneurial community as well as your sectoral, I would say, community.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's also about staying tuned in that sense, right? And I think a lot of times what people don't end up doing is asking for help when they need it, and
Yes, yes.
impact their resilience as well. I think that vulnerability is also required. So thank you for sharing that, Ankur. I think that's a brilliant point. Thank you so much, Ankur. That brings us to the rapid fire round. For you, I've created a list of 4 questions, which I have in front of me right now. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you those. And of course, like any rapid fire, bring it on, make it quick, make it fast.
Sure.
So the first question to you is, one health habit every entrepreneur must adopt.
So for me, that one health habit is recovery. And
Mm,
what I mean by that is the three pillars for every entrepreneur is when it comes to health is its diet, sleep, and exercise.
yeah,
So, but we all have a very hectic, very
mm,
unpredictable schedule. So I
yeah,
make sure that uh, I don't have a second or a third bad day. So there,
mm,
I could have one bad day or two bad day,
yeah,
and I will never let a third bad day come. So for
mm,
me, that is where I feel that to be 100% compliant will never be practically possible. But
yeah.
I follow this rule and I do recommend to all my peer group as well.
Amazing. The biggest mistake you've made in your startup journey.
So for me, the biggest learning, I would say, more than a mistake, was not focusing on one or two areas. We
Mm,
tried to focus on too many aspects in one go instead of building a strong foundation on one or two areas and then take it from there. So
mm,
focus on the best two areas or best one or two priority areas, go deep, and then build the third and fourth.
yeah, so prioritize accordingly.
Yes.
Great. Artificial intelligence, what role does it play in preventive healthcare? Is it a game changer or is it overhyped?
So I would say AI in current times is an enabler.
Mm,
So we do, use in our approach as well, but it enables to give a top class customer experience. It makes our systems and processes more efficient. So I would say in terms of healthcare aspect or in case of pivot, for us,
mm,
it is a very important enabler, but do not replace the human aspect of our work.
yeah. Clearly, yeah, because human element is so important in
Yes.
the DOHP as well that you mentioned. If you could give one piece of advice to your younger entrepreneurial self, what would it be?
It would be take risk early. That gives you leverage of time.
Mm,
And I would say I started my journey at the entrepreneurship journey at 37.
mm,
Ideally, if I would have started, say, 6, 7 year earlier, say in my early 30s or late 20s, that's would have given me more leverage. So that would be my learning or my advice to younger self to start young.
start young. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Ankur. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on this podcast. Wish you all the very best on this journey. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dhruti, and I wish that you continue with your mission of spreading this awareness about resilience through different stories of
Thank
entrepreneurs like us. And I'm sure audience will learn from each conversation and bring those learnings which are applicable to them into their own work. Thank you.
you. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.